Herzlich willkommen zu der ersten Ausgabe von Der andere Blick. Wir freuen uns, dass Sie heute unser Gast sind und wir freuen uns, dass wir heute einen besonderen Gast in der Sendung haben und das ist Nigel Farage. Welcome to Berlin, Nigel. I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And I appreciate that you're first guest in our show. When have you last been to Berlin?
I was last here about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. 2010, I came to Berlin and there were a group of German activists from all different organisations held a conference and they were talking about the Euro, the European Union, Germany, the future, where it was all going. And I came and gave a speech here and I said that what Germany really needed was a Eurosceptic political movement, not just one that wrote papers and did blogs, but one that actually contested elections. And I said that people around Europe who are concerned about the direction of the project and what it means for democracy and for the whole concept of nation state need not feel alone, because there's lots of us in every country feeling like it. So that was my last visit to Berlin.
7 years ago.
7 years ago.
So high time to come back.
Well, yeah, not only high time to come back, because it's a great place to come to, but also what pleases me is that I come back and I find someone like you is putting themselves before the electorate. So whether my visit made any difference or not, I don't know, but I'm very pleased to be here.
Thanks a lot. So what we learned from you is that there is a Brexit now. There wouldn't have been any Brexit without UKIP. There wouldn't have been any UKIP without you. So one can say you're responsible for Brexit.
Oh, I'm responsible for many things. I mean, according to Hillary Clinton, I'm responsible for Donald Trump as well.
Climate change.
What do you blame everything on me, really? No, I mean, look, I was in business for 20 years. I was never, ever going to be in politics. I was in business for 20 years. I was in the metals industry. So there are very few places in the Ruhr and the Rhineland that I didn't visit at some point over those 20 years. So I know all about business in Europe, and I think there's no question that the interlinkages that we've built up since 1945, right across Europe, where we've got rid of barriers to trade and money can flow more freely. I think all of that's been to the good, and I think in many ways it's bettered the lives of tens of millions of people. And I never ever came at this from an anti-European perspective. I mean, I've worked for French companies, married a girl that came from Hamburg. I'm not anti-European, and I get very upset when people try to say this. But, and I do feel this today more strongly than ever, what might have started out as a very good idea, post-war reconciliation, and they're the roots of the project, that if people sit down together and break bread together and trade together, they're going to become friendlier. Well, yeah, absolutely. And nobody in their right minds could think that wasn't a good idea. But now what you've got is you've got Brussels. You've got an organisation full of tens of thousands of people earning far too much money with the best pensions in the world. And this has become about them. It's no longer about reconciliation between countries, and it certainly isn't about the well-being of ordinary people.
You've been fighting for something like 17 years within the European Parliament to achieve what you achieved. You were basically fighting the world. So what is the source of your strength? What is giving you the energy?
Goodness only knows. A touch of madness, perhaps. I don't know. It's funny, isn't it? You can embark upon something in life and everyone tells you you're wrong, you're crazy, you're mad, you'll never succeed. And it sort of makes you more determined. I think in my case, just perhaps, a sort of personal answer to the question, I survived a massive road traffic accident, was very lucky to survive. I had a very serious illness, and I came out of an aeroplane crash, which, if I look today at the footage, I think, well, how on earth did I get out of that? I think perhaps sometimes when you have, really extraordinary experiences like that, you kind of think, you know what? I don't really care what people think anymore. I'm just going to do it.
I think this is what must be the case. Otherwise, you would not survive politically or physically. As you've been going that way the whole time in one direction, has there been a moment where you really doubted that you would succeed?
No.
Not 1 minute?
No. Never. Never. Do you know, I took the view from early on that whatever was said in Westminster, in London, whatever was said in the national press, people who drink in my pub in my village in Kent don't think like that. And I could see 25 years ago there was a complete divide between what ordinary people wanted out of this and what the political class wanted out of this. And the sort of, if you like, the test bed for me was something called the exchange rate mechanism. And we joined the exchange rate mechanism in 1990, and that was stage 2 of monetary union, stage 3 being joining the euro. Yeah. So we pegged, effectively what we did is we pegged our currency to the Deutschmark. Now, I'd done enough business in Germany to realize that the British economies and German economies are totally different. Yours more based on manufacturing, ours more based on service. Ours more based on global trade, yours far more heavily based on continental trade.
Or trade with UK.
Well, as it turns out, and we'll come to that in a minute, I'm sure. And I could see that if you peg two currencies to each other with countries that operate at different stages of the economic cycle. So I predicted in 1990 it would be a disaster.
And here we are.
But funny, isn't it? In a way, thank goodness we did join the exchange rate mechanism, because if we hadn't had that horrible lesson, we too would have been part of the euro as well.
Okay, let's come to Brexit and the European Union. Imagine yourself being responsible for putting reforms to the European Union and handed over the power by Juncker or whomever. How would you reform the European Union, if ever?
No. There are no reforms. There are no reforms.
If you could design them.
There are no reforms.
This is what we know.
I'm a veteran. You've just started in this. I've been watching this, right, for 2.5 decades. There was a moment that the European Union could have reformed. And it was when the former French president, Giscard d'Estaing, had his constitutional convention to decide what was the future of the European project. Because, you know, Mitterrand, Kohl and Delors had pushed it towards this direction of more political unification, the euro and everything else. But the big moment to decide, you know, 2002-3, when they were sitting down deciding what's the future of Europe. And this will surprise you, really surprise you. I said that this is the one opportunity you've got to democratize the European project, to try and build a relationship between it and the ordinary voters in the country. They decided, no, we want none of that. We will stick with the Monnet method, as it's known, namely, and I think it's very important that people understand this, every single European law it gets proposed by an unelected European Commission who cannot be removed. Incredible, isn't it? Yeah, that we've gone backwards that far. So that was the moment that it could have been reformed. It wasn't reformed. And if you listen to what is being said today by Juncker, by Tajani from the European Parliament, by Tusk from the European Council, and indeed Macron, what they're all arguing for is deeper centralisation and taking yet more power out of the hands of the individuals. And I think that to argue that it can be reformed, frankly, it's like offering someone fool's gold. You know, it's a very glittery, lovely idea, but it isn't going to happen. And that was why, for us, faced with the end, in the end, faced with that choice, we chose Brexit.
You chose Brexit a year ago, so that was the referendum date, basically the 23rd of June.
Oh, yes.
So it's over a year ago.
To be known forever after as Independence Day.
As Independence
yes,
Day,
absolutely.
Thank you, we're grateful for that. And what is the situation at the moment, 1 year after? How would you comment on that?
You know, what does Brexit really mean? What is the UK saying with Brexit? Very simply, we're saying we do not wish to be part of political union, but we are more than happy to have close trade relationships, to have reciprocal agreements, to have student exchanges, to tackle cross-border crime, pollution, all of those things. You know, we want to be a very responsible next-door neighbour. I know there's a bit of water between us, but you know, we're still relatively close, and we want to be a responsible neighbour. We want to play a full role with our European friends. You know, we do. And logic says that the European Union should recognise a sovereign democratic will of the British people and respect it. They don't.
They're not so close to democracy.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? I mean, you get sort of Mr. Verhofstadt, who's the European Parliament's chief negotiator, deplores the decision. Mr. Juncker's right-hand man, Martin Selmayr, said last week, the British people are stupid. Well, you know, we're not very keen on being talked to like this. And that's getting in the way of something that I think is more important and more relevant to a German audience. And you know, here it is. The fact is that for Germany, the United Kingdom is a crucial marketplace. We have a trade imbalance with you of about 30 billion euros every year, and in some years, it's even bigger than that. There are 1.3 million jobs in Germany directly related to products that are sold into the British marketplace. So this stuff kind of matters. Where Brexit goes from here matters to people working in Bavaria, in the German car industry, or whatever it may be. Now, we're the ones that are buying more from you than you are from us, and we're the ones saying, okay, let's just continue as we are. We're perfectly happy to have no tariffs, not to have those barriers, and to go on doing business. And my guess is that if we spoke to German companies and German workers, and probably the German trade unions, they would say, yeah, do you know what? This kind of makes sense. And yet, we have the election campaign going on. You had the head-to-head last week between Angela Merkel and my close friend Martin Schulz. And 20 million people watch it, and this doesn't even get discussed. So there is a real issue here. And I think there is sort of almost a conspiracy of silence amongst the two front contenders in Germany over this issue. You know, they'd rather not be embarrassed about the European dimension in this campaign. But ultimately, Germany is the biggest, strongest country in Europe, and Merkel, without doubt, with the most influential voice of any member state. She could, I assume she's going to be re-elected, she could do something on behalf of the whole of Europe and make Germany very popular.
Make Germany great again.
Well,